Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Senija, and I come from London, University of London, School of Oriental and African Studies. So just wanted to start this presentation with something which wasn't planned in my slides, but since we are discussing this topic quite a lot, there is my favorite quote from Michael Ignatieff, who is at Central European University, which was migrated from Budapest to Vienna, the narcissism of minor difference. Then when there is not that many difference between the people, the fear and the imagination make some extra differences which do not exist in real life, but they exist in imagination. And that imagination travels from generation to generation and generation. And then, after certain numbers of generations, these differences become real. So again, time and space, and another favorite, one of my favorite authors, Mikhail Bakhtin, who was talking about chronotope and how time and space travels with time and becomes one. So just as an edited a few points I wanted to make. But as you can see, I have changed as well as the colleague on Budapest has also done the title a little bit. So it's going to be a bit more like a reflective on as well on what I have heard. I kept my slides very broad, the pictures very broad, so that I can actually narrow it down after I've heard the presentations so far. So let's start from the beginning. Okay, fine. It doesn't. I think it's going to be better like this. No. How does it go?
Just that you are in the...
Yeah, because I don't hear. I don't see what is in Dutch. So I have a bit of technical problems with the language, as we talked about the language, even in the presentation. Oh, wonderful. Fine. Thank you. So I'll use this one instead of a mouse. So yeah, I started my research on the war and conflict in Bosnia and the way how that conflict has been represented to the tourists. And it was quite like 3-4 years I've done research in Sarajevo and in Mostar, and did a lot of research on the narrative which the tour guides are actually using in order to commodify, to make a product out of the conflict, which was in a recent past. And then afterwards, I've done, since I work at SOAS, we do a bit more wider research on Oriental and African studies. And I've done a research in Spain as well on heritage of Jews and Muslims in Sevilla and Cordoba. Did a research also on narrative of Franco's regime, where is a lot of silence in Spain. Did a research in North Macedonia, in Albania, in Croatia, Serbia, Northern Ireland, Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia. The paper on Tajikistan is still under embargo. I can't publish it in the next 5 years because of the sensitivity of the topic. However, we go back to the Ottoman past and Europe and European relations to Ottoman Empire. And what really fascinates me that actually before invading Middle East, the Ottomans invaded the West. So while they were invading the East, that was a conquer from the West to the East. So for the people in the Middle East, there was like a kind of a subliminal and different ways of thinking about the Ottoman conquest than it was for us. For us, it was from the east to the west. So in that sort of a context, that particular notion of what is west and what is east is really a question, and the question whether we need to have it as a question. Where do we belong? Are we in the west, or are we in the east, or southeast, or southwest? These are all public constructs, depending on where we are coming from and what kind of our own position. So lots of reflexivity and introspection needs to come into the context. And there is the root, which plays quite significant part in this particular context, because it is indeed the mark of what can be done, and how the natural environment, the environment, the nature reserves, bird watching, lakes, the rubbish which is around comes to play. This natural environment comes to play with the cultural context, which we need to talk a bit more about. So, and how they can really together in some symbiosis create indeed what we were talking before by Dominic, the tourism product, which is not something some mass tourism, but really this kind of a slow tourism, off-grid tourism, independent, and we can talk about the names and the brands later on. So what I wanted to say, what is quite fascinating on Sultanstrail is to think about what connects these places and spaces on the trail. What is presented to the tourist? Why is that so? What is hidden away? What are the reasons to hide it away? Why is it hidden away? And who do we have to present our cultural heritage to? And this is something what I was asking. Either I'm talking about Ottoman heritage in Europe, or I'm talking about Catholic heritage and murals in Belfast, or whether we are talking about slave trades and Middle East and Oman. It's always this: what is present and what is perceived, and what is present but not perceived. To speak about it. To speak about it more bluntly. And I called it exotic veil. What is there? What is behind the veil? And what is that what we don't want to talk about and do not want to share? In Belfast, they were telling me, like, we don't want to share because we are ashamed of what has happened here, but because you're from this region, so I don't even know how to call it, from post-Yugoslav space and place, we don't feel ashamed to talk about the troubles we have had here, and the civil war which we had here. We are not that ashamed to talk about this in front of you. But if you are from Italy or Germany, we would stay a bit more quiet. So it's again like, who do you talk to? That's also something what I have seen. Similarly, in Oman, people wanted to speak to me, but not to my colleague, because he comes from Britain, and they were like feeling a bit more because they were in suzerainty with the United Kingdom 100 years ago, and they were like, shall we talk about this or no? But with me, there was not a problem. But in that sense, this exotic veil is quite an interesting point to talk about. And when it comes to the Europe and the context of Europe and EU in particular, what is the European identity? What do we say? What do we talk about as being our identity, and what we want to hide away? So the classic Greece, the Pythagora, the Plato, Aristotle. This is like the ingrained identity. How we talk. how we talk about the world around us. Latin Christendom, then Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci, all what we were proud of. I'm not gonna try to pronounce a Dutch painter because I know I pronounce it wrong every time. So I'll just put a portrait here. And Descartes, with the dualism, with the black and white, yes or no, binary discourse, east-west, which is like in a place where we live, and we all live like cyborg with the technology, and we need to talk a bit more about oneness, as not about divisions and trying to put everything in a certain categories. And although we are now in a part of European modernity, we are still coming back to Descartes' dualism, which shapes who we are and how we talk. How we talk about the Balkans, we are also there is quite a lot of Edward Said's Orientalism and Maria Todorova's Imagining the Balkans, which they have both given a very critical discourse about how the West talks about the East and etc. and what is the East and what is the West. And Karen Barkey's Empire of Difference, when we talk about Ottoman Empire, which you really can't comprehend with this Descartes' Cartesian dualism, yes or no, binary discourse. But there was somebody mentioned before the fear, and this is something what is ingrained for the generations about what is that, what comes from the East. So one of the tour guides with whom I did an interview for the research we did in Sarajevo said quite bluntly, we take it for granted as we think that we are special because we built a bridge between the East and the West. But that was always there. East and West were always there, and we do not think about that. We were here before East and West were invented, and indeed, it really is as such when we step back and take a moment and pause to think about not just about what is branding. Every city brands itself as a talk between East and West. Even Hong Kong does the same. So in that sense, there are a bit more useful terms to use when we talk about heritage in the Balkans. I'm going back. Yeah. So these are. Sorry, yeah. And then we come back to the Sultans Trail. And it indeed, it exists. It connects Vienna with Istanbul, and by that it's really the route which has so much potential to be explored and reshaped. And what we are saying, the local communities, we need to understand the local communities, how the local communities would reflect on this, and what kind of narratives to use, not to offend, but to come to a certain agreement. And some of the sites, when it comes to Ottoman heritage, are much better preserved. Like Tika, for instance, has done a lot of renovation in Herzegovina on this was Teke, Dervish Teke, which we never speak about Bektashi dervishes who came to the Balkans before Sultan was in the Balkans, and really made peace with the local people. The Mostar Bridge, which was with so much hatred, was ruined in the 1993 Croatian army and has been rebuilt and became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. To Skopje, where it's a really divided city, I had two tour guides, one with with the Macedonian Christian, one with Albanian Muslim, and I took completely different talks and different narrative about. But they were all saying like it looks very romantic. This bazaar. Then we spoke about Sarajevo. This is like the Orthodox house in Sarajevo, Despića kuća, where we see that the style how it's designed is very Ottoman, because the times it was very fashionable, and it was the symbol of the rich house when you have this kind of a beautiful furniture in your home. So on the other side, we also have the Jewish synagogue, and the beautiful story about Ottoman accepting the Jewish population who were running from Spain. So these kinds of narratives are very heartwarming for every tourist who comes and sees the place around. So is this Balkanism or some occluded, obfuscated Ottoman Europe? How do we discuss that in a bit more macro European concept? What do we make out of it? So these are some of the points I wanted to talk to. How much time do I have? 5. Oh, fantastic! So just wanted to say a couple of more things about our project COST, which really talks about cultural roots and European and cultural roots of the Council of Europe as well. So these roots are actually made to instill the peace around the European context. These are, I just put here, copy-pasted from the website, what are the roots which we have at the moment. So we have architecture of totalitarian regimes, Alvar Aalto route, etc., Le Corbusier destinations, Jewish heritage route, different kinds of routes, and just slightly there is a bit about Ottoman heritage with the Jewish root, because they have the Haggadah society in Sarajevo, which is a member as well of that cultural root. However, there is not much really that we can see European heritage in any of those roots, and it's kind of very hidden away. It exists. We all our lives have been really influenced, and our culture and our heritage was influenced by the Ottoman times. Every country had relationships with the Ottoman Empire, but on the other side, we somehow occlude that within the context of European heritage. And this is something what may really bring more peace and understanding between people of Europe, and more kind of a united sphere within the current context, where we have so many right-wing governments around the world, from United States to totalitarian regimes. This narrative is something what is always what we have to think about further in order to really establish peace on the long term, because this is not good in economic terms, environmental terms, and this kind of conspiracy theories which are coming at the moment from every part of our lives. It's something what indeed needs to be taken forward. The worst conspiracy theory ever happened in Europe was what has happened with there was the Jewish question in 1939. Why Adolf Hitler had this brutal plan to abolish all the Jews who live because of the conspiracy theory. And it was nothing more than that. And this is very dangerous to go into this route. And we see that Europe itself it's sinking towards this. It's not only Balkans that it has something to do with it, but we have to look at a wider perspective and see how the global context influenced Balkans and how Balkans influence the global context. And talking about that, to go back to this about what I was just quoting Yuval Noah Harari about Hitler, Adolf Hitler. I forgot to mention the book. And the last point I wanted to talk a little bit about is cost. European cooperation of science and technology, which is linked to Horizon Europe, European funding project, and we are trying to have our research and our knowledge, and to gain more knowledge about how to manage contested heritage and heritage with wider and different meanings. I'm so happy that UK is still allowed to be a part of costs, and it's the only thing, the only action, the only funding which we are still allowed to be a part of. It has been confirmed, and so therefore this project will last 4 or 5 years, and will give us a lot of help in order to really construct a proper cultural route where we would embed environment, cultural heritage, and very contested cultural heritage, and the knowledge of the people. So the knowledge of the local people, which need to be more listened to. So thank you so much, and if you have any questions, whenever chair allows.